Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Tuesday with Terry. Hey, it's me. It's your old pal, Terry Blakechek, talking to you. I've got a couple things I want to share with you today. And remember, I'm talking to you live from Austin, Texas, where the sun is hot. Barbecue is sweet and all the drinks are free when you hang out with me. I wanted to ask you a question. If you're like me and you're starting out the new year in January, you're starting to think about the year, you've probably already thought about your New Year's resolutions, or maybe you haven't gotten to it yet. Maybe you're still thinking or pondering those resolutions. But, one of the questions I might ask myself, and I am asking myself as I put my resolutions together, what am I really trying to do here? And am I playing a long game? Am I setting myself up for the long game, or am I playing a short game? Now, I don't know about you, but I learned how to play tennis when I was in high school. And you can play baseline tennis where you hit the long shots, or you can play up close to the net and, volley the tennis ball back and forth. But there's such a thing in tennis called no man's land, when you're right smack dab in the middle and all the balls are hitting at your feet and you can't get them as well. So you need to be thinking about the short game. You need to be thinking about the long game. And I'll give you another illustration is when I was 10, 11 years old, maybe 11 or 12, I just started running. And my dad, I was going to run a race. There was this group of kids that were going to have a race in town. And I was never a fast runner. I was always a slow runner. I was always picked last at recess for all the running game, all the tag games, because I was a slow runner. I was not a fast runner at all. And so my dad said, you ought to enter this race. I think the race was 1.5 miles. Might have been, I think I was 12 years old. It was 1.5 miles. And so my dad took me up to the high school track and he said, I'm going to teach you something that you can use the rest of your life. And he goes, I'm going to teach you how to pace yourself. I didn't even know what that meant at 12 years old. I didn't understand what pacing was. But, I was a kid that played outside a lot when I was a child, and I was pretty rough on shoes. And so I could only use sneakers when we went to the gym. I could never use my sneakers play outside. And so my dad, to try to strengthen my legs, we went out and he got me these work boots, and he made me run on the track in work boots because they were like ankle weights. And he said, this is going to make you stronger. And of course, we got up to the track and I took off, and my dad just started running at a very slow pace. And I thought I was like kicking his butt and I was beating him. And by the time I got, 200 yards out there, I was out of breath. Sure enough, my dad just comes up very slow and he says, let's go, let's keep going. Come on. But he goes, I don't want you to run ahead of me. I don't want you to run behind me. I want you to run with me. And as I would either go faster or slower, and I learned how to control my breathing and I learned how to control my pace, my dad actually taught me how to pace. And so there was another kid in school. He was one of the fastest runners in school, and he too was entering the race. And of course, all the buzz at school was about this kid was going to kick my butt and he was going to beat me in this race. And my dad kept telling me, don't worry. All you need to remember is pace yourself. Pace yourself. Pace yourself. And so we got out to the start line of that race, and I can remember all the kids getting ready to start the race, and they shot the gun off, and we all took off. And sure enough, this kid that was the fastest, and my reputation was at stake at school because everybody knew I was a slow runner, and this kid was the fast. Oh, I was going to just kick my butt. And sure enough, didn't you know it? He shot out of that start gate like a cannon, and man, was he off to the race, and he disappeared. And my self-fulfilling prophecy said to myself, there it is. Guess I'm not as fast. I never have been fast. I'm not as fast. I started negative self-talk. But I remember what my dad said. Continue to pace yourself. Don't run too fast. Make sure you finish the race. Pace yourself, pace yourself, pace yourself. What my dad was teaching me at the time was teaching me how to play the long game. And the long game, and sure enough, about 1/4 mile into the race, here I saw this guy that was the fastest guy, bent over, out of breath, puking in the ditch on the sideline, and very slowly, boom, 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 boom. I passed that guy and I beat him in that race. And I'll never forget that story as a 12-year-old because it was a great win for me. But the win was because of preparation. The win was because of my ability to play the long game and pace myself. Have you ever thought you were in a race and maybe it was a 5K or it was a mile race and you realized it was a longer race? I did that when we were in COVID. I thought, well, COVID's only going to be 6 weeks. We'll be out of this in a month or 2 months. And then I said, man, it can't last longer than 2020. Right. And then sure enough, things weren't back to normal. Everybody's still wearing masks. In the end of the year, you travel, airplanes were still, remember all the social distancing, mask, cleaning, cleansing, everything. It was like amazing. And so I had to recalibrate. And I had to realize that we were in a much longer race than what I expected. And I thought now it must have been a 2-year race. I tell you that, 2021 was going to be the year. And I had to recalibrate. And then it was 2022 and we put our forecasts, we put our budgets, we put our numbers together, and I went through all of that and I had to recalibrate. I realized that I was in a 3-year race for business, to return business to usual. And we're still working on it. And the reason I bring that up is because if you want to create value in yourself or in your job or with your money or in your relationships, you need to be thinking about the long game, not the short game. You've heard this many times. You can win the battle and lose the war. How do you win the war? How do you play the long game? And so what I want to do is I want to give you a couple tips right now. Because you see, we all have problems in our life. We all deal with battles, our own personal demons, our own battles in our life. We deal with battles at work. We deal with battles in our relationships. We deal with battles in our skills. We deal with battles in our health, and we deal with battles with having peace of mind. And I wanted to share some tips with you, maybe about those 5 areas that how you can play the long game or think about this as a long game as opposed to a short game. And so let's talk about number 1, love. I have a toast I do. I read it a while ago, but I've been doing it. It goes like this. Some ships are made out of wood, but those ships can sink. The best ships are friendships, and to those friendships we should drink. And that's a toast I have, but I want to tell you that in love and relationships, it's about the long game. If you want to be in love and you want to have meaningful relationships, it's the long game. It's the long-term relationships in your life that have more meaning. Think about it. Think about the kids you grew up with in elementary school. Think about the kids you went to high school with. Think about the kids you went to college with. Think about your business acquaintances and business associates. And now tell me, how many very best friends do you have? Because most of us have very few best friends, but I'll promise you, they're probably people that have been around a long time in your life. And you've shared many life experiences with those people. Investment in time in relationships, deliberate kindness, deliberate care, sincere interest in those relationships, and time is what creates great relationships, creates love and lasting relationships. Play the long game in love. Play the long game if you want to have love and personal best relationships. What about your health? How do you play the long game with your health? Some people say, well, I worked out and I lost the weight and I don't have to do anything anymore. But, if you're really looking at your health is really driven by good habits. Those habits happen daily. Those habits happen weekly. And it could be with diet. It could be with exercise. It could be with rest. It could be with sunshine. It could be with your checkups and preventive medicine, right? The preventive side of making sure that you don't, get the bad stuff, and you do that by early detection. And so recently I've been going to more doctor appointments because I'm trying to do more on the preventive side because I'm getting a little older. But I'm just telling you, health and good health comes with the long game. Consistent habits on diet, exercise, nutrition, rest, all those good things, and the prevention side. It's a long game. Wealth. Let's talk about wealth. How many of us want to be wealthy? I don't mean make a big paycheck, right? There's a lot of people that make a lot of money but still don't have any money. They make a lot of money, they spend a lot of money. So when you are thinking about wealth, are you thinking about it in your 20s? Are you thinking about it in your 30s? Are you thinking about it in your 40s or in your 50s or 60s? Because you need to be thinking the long game about wealth. And it starts with small things like savings accounts. It starts with small things like investing $100 or $500. It starts with becoming having more business acumen or investment acumen in terms of understanding investments instead of how to create wealth, how not to spend beyond your means. And I want to tell you flat out, 100% from my heart, through my life experiences, debt is not your friend. It is not your friend. Debt for college is not your friend. How many people spend years of their life trying to pay off college education? Debt, credit card debt is not your friend. 15, 17, 18, 22% interest rates. It's crazy. You get into that hole and that cycle and you can just never get yourself out. So I'm just suggesting is you need to educate yourself. Read the book called The Automatic Millionaire. I read that a number of years ago. I made some changes in my life and I was able to put things on auto payment into my investments, into my IRAs, into things. And it helped me out tremendously because I didn't have to make a conscious decision. Read the book, The Automatic Millionaire. It's a pretty good one. Wealth is not just about a salary. It's about creating net worth, asset appreciation, investing in assets that can actually appreciate and generate income for you. Love, health, wealth. What about peace of mind? You playing the long game with your peace of mind? And that really comes in reflection. It comes usually at the end of a year. It comes in self-reflection when big changes are happening in your life. I'm going through that right now. And so I've been reflecting a lot. I've been thinking a lot. I've been trying to open my mind up for my next chapter of my life, my adventure, what's about to happen. I'm trying to be more stoic, right? So stoicism, if you know what that is, that's being able to control the things you can control and not worrying about the things that are out of your control. It's the story of, I may have told this one before, but it's the story of the Chinese farmer. Chinese farmer wakes up one morning and a horse wanders into his yard and all of his friends say, "Oh, what great news. You got a horse. This is fantastic." And the Chinese farmer says, "I'm not sure if it's good or bad." And so the next day he gets up and the horse has run away and all the neighbors go, "Oh my gosh, that's terrible. You just had a horse. How valuable." And all of a sudden now it's gone. That's the worst of the worst news for you. And the Chinese farmer says, "I'm not too sure if that's so bad." And the next day the horse comes back and it came back with another horse. And all his friends says, "Oh my gosh, that's fantastic." And the Chinese farmer says, "I'm not so sure that's fantastic." And his son gets on the horse and he goes for a ride on the horse and the horse gets galloping a little bit too fast and takes a stumble and it throws him off the horse and he breaks his leg and hurts his back. And all of his neighbors go, "That's terrible. Get rid of those horses. They're just terrible, bad news for you. And look at it, hurt your son." And just a little while after that, the emperor decides he's going to go to war and he calls all the young men of the countryside to come in and they have to sign up for the war. But this young man couldn't go because he had a broken leg and they wouldn't allow him to enter into the war. And all of his friends says, "How lucky are you? Well, I tell you, you're the luckiest man in the world. Your son didn't have to go to war." And the Chinese farmer said, I'm just not too sure. And the moral of the story is never get too excited, never get too down. Try to control those peaks and those valleys with your emotions just a little bit more and be more stoic. Worry about the things that you can control and less worry about the things that are out of your control. That, in fact, will give you more understanding and peace of mind. And finally, your talents or skills. You know, I'll tell you a personal story is I've been in the fitness business all my life. And in my 20s, man, at 28, 29 years old, man, I thought I was pretty good. I thought I was a good fitness guy. I thought I was new sales. I really understood the business, you know, because I was a professional. I was an exercise physiologist and I understood the business. And then I went through my 30s and I became an executive, and I became a executive VP and a chief operating officer. And, I got to manage bigger teams, and I got to go to seminars and conferences and industry network conference. And in my 30s, I thought I really had it figured out. I really, man, I tell you, was I pretty confident. And then I hit my 40s. And I got let go from a company, and I started a new company, and I really got in deeper and deeper into my role as a VP of sales, and then a chief marketing and sales officer. And man, did I think I really had it figured out then. And then I had the chance to travel around the world and go to Mexico and go to Brazil and go to Canada and all different groups in the United States. And I just learned a ton of things. I thought I knew everything, and this is in my 40s, and I thought I knew everything already, but yet in my 40s, I began to learn even more. And then in my 50s, 49, I started Orange Theory Fitness, and I didn't really understand franchising, and I understand small studio concepts. I was always the big box guy, and in my 50s, man, I really learned. I learned a lot about private equity, and most recently, debt restructuring. And now I'm a CEO, and I go, man. But the thing I would tell you is I've learned the most over the course of the last 30 or 40 years is you never stop learning, and you never stop growing your talents. School is never out for the true professional. I'm telling you, school is never out for the true professional. It takes time. And over time, you gain talent, and you gain wisdom, and you gain experience. And that, my friend, you cannot trade for all the money in the world. My name's Terry. I'm your friend. Play the long game. Become better at your relationships and love them. Become better at your health. Become better at your wealth. Become better at your peace of mind and your talents and your skills by playing the long game.